Hello, I'm Madeline Tynan and we're here today with Michael Ennis from Fox Sport. How are you today, Michael?
Yeah, good morning, Mads. Interesting times, isn't it? So we often catch up in the showroom, but we're doing it this way at this point in time. So it's yeah, great to see your face and great to see you doing well. And
I really appreciate it actually because I know it's obviously your class is an essential service, the same as we are. We're still looking after the police and the ambulance cars, etc., and still working away. So, and I know you've been going in and out of work. Probably, firstly, how are you surviving with the four kids at home and being a teacher as well with your wife?
yeah, look, it's been a challenge. I mean, it's hard to complain at this time because people are doing it really tough. And as you said, I've been really blessed that with my work, deemed as an essential service, I've been able to continue working through this time. But it's been lovely having the kids home in a funny way. We've done so many different things and bonded in different ways. Our afternoons previously were spent running the kids around, picking them up from school, dropping them straight at sporting activities, and trying to get dinner ready and then race off to work, and all those different day
Mm.
to day lives that just became normal. And now that that stuff has stopped, it's almost taken us back 20 years ago to when I was a kid, where we're riding push bikes around the street and we've been for bushwalks and we're sitting down, reading books a lot more together and working through the schoolwork with them, and that's been eye opening. But it's been good fun, and the kids are just so resilient, and the schools have done a tremendous job, particularly the high school that my son's at, and also the primary school down here in Oyster Bay, where my kids go to school. Boy, they've done a good job, the teachers, to be able to
I was just saying to you before that my daughter's tried to even you and I out with both four children, and she's expecting twins in August, which will be exciting for her.
Yeah, exciting, isn't it? Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great in these times to have some things to really look forward to, and moments like that are pretty special. But yeah, I take my hat off to the teachers, Mads. They've done a great job in terms of getting the parents as up to date as quick as possible, to keep the kids being able to be educated, because that was the biggest fear, I think, when all this started. And we saw Scott Morrison and Gladys Berejiklian and basically saying that the schooling is just so important, but
Definitely.
we just didn't know whether it was safe enough to send them, and we got onto that pretty early, Simone and I, and made sure that we kept the kids away from anywhere where they could be vulnerable, because we just didn't know what was coming. We were looking at the pictures of New York and the UK, and it just looked devastating. And
I know you just want to
so
keep your family closer, right?
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you know, we all work together, all our family, so we all work together. So I have been blessed in still being able to see the grandchildren and things like that. So it's good. Let's get into the NRL. Can I just ask though, the communication that you've had to put forward out to the everyday person that just loves to go to the footy from a Friday night to a Sunday afternoon, how have you been communicating to them up till this stage? When we first went into lockdown, I think we got one game in that I went to. I think there was two played. How have you been communicating to those everyday lovers of rugby league?
Yeah, it was interesting, Mads. It changed so quickly because
Mm.
it really, obviously, the coronavirus stuff just exploded onto the scene really quickly. In round one, there were still fans coming in, but I was in Canberra that day, that they were playing the Gold Coast, and about 10 a.m. in the morning, it started to filter around that possibly they were going to cancel the fans being able to come to the game. And from that moment, it became really serious that our game was looking like stopping at some stage because of this. For how long, we didn't know. Um, and from there, that whole routine of what we normally do when, sort of February and March rolls around, in terms of how we broadcast our games, the shows, and just the routine that you fall into in how you deliver what we deliver at Fox for the fans, whether that be games, whether it's panel shows, whether it's analytics and insights to different parts of the game. We had to think outside the square, and I must say that the way that Steve Crawley acted in at Fox so quickly, that basically he rung and said, okay, the game's been cancelled, but we've got so many people that still love our game that at the moment they're gonna need it. Like they're not getting live sport, but they're so passionate about their team and about rugby league that we need to move forward quickly and make sure that we're still keeping them up to date. And so basically, in the space of 24 hours, he'd spoken to myself and a couple of other people about jumping onto this podcast type setup, which would be live, like a morning breakfast show, to keep everyone involved. Now, that was supposed to happen at the end of the week, and within 2 or 3 hours, we basically said we had changed and we needed to be in there at 5:30 the next morning to get started. And from there, each day, Fox have basically broadcast a live podcast show where they keep the fans up to date with different journalists and obviously us commentators just around what's happening in the game and what it may look like when it comes back.
It's not like you haven't had things to talk about. We've seen the CEO has stood down, and I know you're a big supporter of his. But in looking at that, I think changes needed to be happening. Not that I'm right in on that, but I think the NRL versus other codes really had to stand back and have a good look at what was happening. Do you agree with that?
I think the fact that this situation is like no other, and to basically stop the game and gave us an opportunity to have a look where we're really at, because you just become, I don't know if complacent's the word. I don't know if you just, maybe it's routine, but you just roll with what happens day to day. And because we're so busy and consumed by rugby league, that I don't think it's had this opportunity to stop and actually analyse where it's at. And it had completely basically overcompensated itself, if that's the right word, in terms of the amount of staff and the amount of outgoings, really, for what the game was actually able to sustain.
Yes.
And I think that this has been a great opportunity for us to reset. And I think, whilst it's really difficult for a lot of people because there's people's jobs on the line, there's, families involved and people's livelihoods that are going to be without jobs. I would imagine that the NRL will come back looking a lot different in terms of how it's run day to day and the amount of staff.
You have to run lean and mean, and there's casualties. And unfortunately, it gets to the top and then it comes down from there. So, and not only did he be a CEO, but he also had a board to report to and commission, etc. And at the end of the day...
And I was really strong in saying that I felt that Todd had certainly done a lot of good things, and no doubt, he got a couple of things wrong as well. I never shied away from that. He's a great friend of mine. He's a really good person. He's got a great work ethic. I loved my time working alongside him. And so I just felt that it was my, my opportunity in the role that I have to state that. But at the same time, there was no doubt that he had to be accountable, and I think that that's proven. But I still stand by the fact that I think that there's other people in that organisation that needed to be accountable as well. So,
But I think that's where a CEO has to call that in the end. They've got to call a line in the sand and make those changes. But it's happened now, so we've got to move forward with that, and I wish him the very best and his family, obviously, because it is unprecedented times, and there's a lot of casualties happening left, right and centre, and the NRL is not alone in that. In talking with the different business people that we've been talking to, there's a lot of casualties, and in our area, obviously, with Qantas being a lot of employees, we've seen a big downturn there. And getting to that, living in the St George and Sutherland area as we do, with two different teams biting for those clients that are us, what do you think will happen there? We've already got Cronulla that was over at St George. If they don't have any clients that are allowed to come, or customers that are going to come and watch the game, should they go back and play at Cronulla and play the games there, or what do you think will happen there?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, obviously, because there's just so much construction going on in terms of, around the club there at Cronulla. I would love to see them go back there. I mean, it I'd be lying if I said it wasn't strange seeing them playing Melbourne at Cogra, a ground that, I played on both sides of the ledger, Mad, so I know how much rivalry and passion's there. And to think that the Sharks would use Cogra as a home ground, I never thought I'd see the day. But, it worked. it worked. It had to work. But you're right. I think it's a time where clubs and a lot of pressure will come onto, the sponsorship and the marketing teams at clubs to think outside the box in terms of how in this period do they maximise the exposure for our sponsors when they're unable to be able to take their clients, which they've been able to do for so long, 2 games. And I think that then that a lot of that's going to, come down to social media channels. It'll come down to club websites. It'll come down to the signage around the grounds and how they maximise that through the television broadcast.
I totally agree with you there. A lot of the clubs have strong leagues clubs, so it'll be interesting to see what happens to those clubs and how they thrive or don't thrive, really. That, unfortunately, and that's any business.
I mean, that's going to be really interesting too, isn't it? Because, I mean, just because the NRL looks to be getting underway on the 28th of May, that doesn't mean that the clubs and pubs are going to be open. So, again, they're doing it really tough at the moment as well, the pubs and clubs. So, whether they're able to, to provide that assistance for the NRL team will be, I'm unsure of that at the moment. So, obviously the clubs will have their grant from the NRL, which, is all being sorted at the moment in terms of how the competition looks. We understand it'll be a 20-round competition with a grand final on the 25th of October. And the broadcasters are still locked in day-to-day meetings with our chairman, with Peter V'landys, about, what sort of revenue that, the broadcasters will have to deposit into the game.
So therefore, then we need to look at players not sticking to the rules. That's, to me, devastating. I don't believe, I'm not saying that what they've done, that they have to be accountable to their bosses. But what I'm saying is, at this particular time of negotiations with the government, with everybody else, it could cost the NRL a lot of money if this doesn't get off the ground correctly. And then do we lose that trust? Are they going to lose that trust going forward on those players to make those decisions? So does it have to get tougher on them?
Yeah, no, there's no doubt that the last couple of days haven't been great. And as you said, like, if you look at the incidents, I think that, that they've obviously, the 2 boys that were up the north coast have, been on a farm and, they're self-isolating, which everyone in the community's done a terrific job with. Yeah, that was disappointing that wasn't abided to. Yeah, as you said, at this point in time. And then obviously the other situation with the TikTok videos is just, the young blokes that have made poor decisions, and I don't think they understand what's at stake. And it's important now, without going over it and over it again, it's important now that the other players recognise just what is at stake, and we can't afford to have any more hiccups whatsoever. There's so much riding on the game getting back, not just for the players and their salaries, but for the amount of people that are involved in the game. Peter V'landys has spoken strongly about his will to want to give the public live sport for their mental health and well-being. So there's so much at stake, Madeline.
I think also too, you've got to think of the sponsors. Us being one of them. The money that has already been outlaid, when all of us are doing a slice right from the top down to the bottom of our staff. We've had to lay off people. Us personally have had to lay off over 60. So you feel sorry then. You're going like, well, hang on, where do we stand in all of this? And every other local business that supports all of the NRL, we need to feel confident to move forward there as well too.
I felt that Peter V'landys was really measured, him and Andrew Abdo, with their fines. I felt like 20,000 for both the boys that were on the North Coast was significant, given what the general public, had been fined for their social distancing, in terms of that being $1,000 to the players, copping $20,000. So I thought that it was a real warning shot to say he's not going to tolerate it. But I dare say the next one that steps out of line, and fingers crossed there's not, it'll be really severe. I did still think that they could have been firmer in terms of, I thought they would have missed some games. I thought they would have missed, a fortnight or or 3 weeks of but
I'm not here to judge them. I think that, but if they've got not just themselves to be accountable to, they've got the whole of the NRL.
absolutely. I'm hoping that they, understand that now. And, I know I might sound like I'm being a little light on them and, saying that they're only 22 and what have you, but, I still do feel that they just didn't understand the actual severity.
I totally agree, and it's that age group. They don't feel vulnerable like as we get older. They do feel young, fit, and can take on anything, and they won't be. But that's actually the biggest age group it's also hitting. So we do have to be careful for them as well too.
And I think when Monday rolls around, and again, it sounds like a bit of a cop out, but when they get back to training and they get back in their routine and they're around their mentors, their senior players, their coaches, their leaders, the CEOs, that I think that the risk of them, and I hope this is right, but the risk of them making those silly decisions will be totally reduced or eliminated, hopefully.
I do too. I think we have to move forward. That as you say, it's a poor decision. There's lots of people out in the market, in our society that are making poor decisions. I'm not perfect myself, so I'm just more worried about the actual health and the well-being of the NRL. Full stop. Just going forward on that and looking at where we're going to be out of all of this that's happened. What do you think's the takeout? What do you think we've learnt as you as a dad, as you as a Fox presenter? What do you think you'll take out of this to move forward?
A real appreciation, I think, for certainly just for the simple things. To be honest, Mads, like I spoke to you at the start of the show, you get so consumed in our jobs and running the kids around, and sometimes in the old days when you used to, me growing up, I played footy in winter, and over the summer I tried a bit of cricket for a while. I didn't have the patience for that, and so we just go to the beach, as a family. And these days, if without boring you, it's I've got daughters dancing 5 days a week, 5 nights a week, sometimes 6. I've got 2 boys at footy training 2 nights a week, which I coach one of them. Then we go into OzTag, and then it just never stops, and our weekends are often our busiest time. And I think that this time has given us a real opportunity to strip things back and spend time together as a family, and appreciate that it doesn't have to be all the flash things. Sometimes it's just the simple things of being together and sitting watching a movie on the lounge, that playing a game of together around the dinner table, that is some of the most enjoyable things in our life. And I think that at this period of time, on a work sense, has made me really rediscover my love for rugby league as well, because it's hard when you're so busy not to just see it as a job some days. And it's actually the game that I've missed. I've missed my Friday nights and my Saturdays just sitting watching what I love and what I've grown up doing, from when I was a little boy with my dad in the front room, watching him barrack for Manly. I'm missing that passion. I'm missing that, weekly live sport of just, in my opinion, just what's so Australian.
Yes, I totally agree. Do you think, though, it will change anything of the actual NRL moving forward?
Yeah, I do. I think, well, I think, as we've sort of alluded to earlier, that the game was running on on an unsustainable balance sheet, basically. So I think that we'll see a reduction definitely at head office in terms of how many people are in there working. And I also think that with the new broadcast deal, I'd be surprised if there's not some reduction there as well, in terms of the players and the salary cap. By how much, I don't know. That's just the feeling that I get at the moment. That
think we'll see a cut down in teams?
No, look, I'm not going to rule that out, because I know that there's some really good people and passionate people about wanting to get an NRL team going, and I'd love to see it expand, because I think that there's some really, I love when when I've been over to Perth. I loved playing over there, and I've got some good friends that are really pushing hard in Queensland to get that second team up and running as well up there. And it's such a nursery for rugby league up there, whether it be in Brisbane or whether it be up towards Rockhampton way, somewhere along there. There's definitely an opportunity for the game to continue to grow. But in saying that, when you start to say that, well, then people come back again and say, well, then who goes? Who goes? And when you look at the smaller clubs, one of them is Cronulla, and Cronulla was the most enjoyable time of my career, and I can't ever say that I would want Cronulla to close down. I absolutely love the place, and I love the community, and it needs a footy team. And you look at the nursery of kids on Saturday mornings when you drive around and watch the local footy. There's some age groups coming through in the 15s, 14s, all the way through to sort of under 10s, where there's some of the goodest, best young little footy players I've seen.
I mean, we're a growth area. I know we're out on a peninsula and everything else, and we could get gobbled up by St George or whatever, St George Illawarra. But the numbers in the Shire are growing, so we're only going to get more and more.
The women's game too is been fantastic. Seeing so many of the young girls playing. Both rugby league, OzTag, touch league. It's it's such an active community. I mean, that you've been here for so long, and it's just
not that
great place to bring up kids, and they've got to have something to aspire to. They've got to have something to aspire to, and that was the biggest enjoyment that I got out of winning the competition at Cronulla in 2016. Was the old fellas down at South Cronulla Beach that sit on the stairs there that. They just thank you. They say, mate, we've waited such a long time for that. And then you've got the young kids that, had grown up, that had never seen their team, their local team, win a premiership, and they wanted to aspire to be that. Yeah, they wanted to be a Sharks player, but they'd never seen that premiership side. And to be able to give those kids that dream to see what we did, to go, I want to be there one day. I felt that when I saw Paul Harrigan lift the trophy in Newcastle. That was a moment in '97 where I went, I want to do that. And our community loves its sport, and it's important that we don't lose our footy.
Well, I think you're very right in saying that. I think, and I do remember you telling me the day you went to the grand final, and your young son, who now is, obviously at high school, etc., sitting out the front waiting for you with your bag, etc., and you're very structured when you played football. You did the same thing every single game, so you were very organised. And looks like he's following in your footsteps.
Yeah, they're both going well, the boys. They love their footy. The eldest boy plays down at Cronulla Carrying Bar down there, and my youngest boy plays at De La Salle with his mates there, and it's the best part of my week. It is. I love nothing more than my Saturday mornings, just getting a coffee and going down and, mixing with the mums and dads that obviously, down there watching their kids run around, and just the fulfillment that you get when you watch your kids play sport and achieve things. It's, like there's something of achieving things for yourself, but I get a hell of a lot more kick out of watching my kids achieve things. So.
Well, in talking with all the different businesses, Michael, it's all about team playing. And in this particular time of when it's so uncertain, it's all about team playing. It's all about leadership. It's all about making sure we don't leave anyone behind in that pandemic that we've been going through, that everyone is accountable and everyone is being spoken to, etc. So we've really enjoyed the chat with you. We hope everything goes really well. I know it's going to be challenging times ahead, and we're all in it. Whether you play football, whether you play netball, whether you're in business or whether you're in the media, we're all in this together as Australians, and hopefully moving forward and moving to the other side, not in the too distant future, and we can get back to listening to you and watching the lovely rugby league playing again.
Yeah, so true, Mads. And I think just finally, I just thought of one of your questions that you asked me. Maybe it's going to take us back to that Aussie way of, helping a mate. We got so consumed in our own lives that maybe at this point in time when people are struggling and they are relying, on other people, that when they do ask for help, we go back to that Aussie way of helping your neighbour and helping your mate out a little bit. And I recommend that people, if you're doing it tough, this is a good community, really good community to be a part of, and go and ask someone for some help. And I think this is the time where we can really reconnect and come together as a community and come out of it stronger.
I think so. And like turn to a friend and just say you're not okay and just have a chat, because sometimes don't text, don't email, just pick up the phone and just say hi. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Thanks,
God
Cass.
bless and love to your kids and family.